July 25th, 2020, planning board. Call to order. Everybody had a chance to go through the agenda. The approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Second. Everybody in favor, say yea. Opposed, say nay. Carries. All right, next, the approval of the May 23rd, 2023 meeting minutes. Everybody went through them? And so we can make a motion to approve it or deny it. Okay. Motion made by Ms. Stokely, second by Mr. Curtis. Everyone in favor? Those opposed? Carries. Okay, next item is public comments. Do we have any method of public comment?
No, sir, we do not have any public comments unless these gentlemen might want to speak today.
Okay. Public comments. All right, now we go to the unfinished business. Consideration of the Hideaway Spring Buffer amendments. You want to take a minute?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
At the May 2023 board meeting, members, if you'll recall, we had discussed public amendments to the stream setback buffer in a high impact development ordinance. You know, there was some gray area, you might say, that came about as a result of the Solaris solar farm development that was approved several months ago. And so in the board's deliberations, if you'll recall, you had instructed me to amend the setbacks on section 14.71, the regulations and standards land use table, as well as to amend the definition for a stream setback. And just to make sure we're all looking at the same document, I'll just go ahead and read that amended definition here. So a stream setback, all uses in industries regulated by this ordinance shall be required to maintain a minimum stream setback from perennial or intermittent stream as specified in the land use table in section 14-71, the stream setback. Stream setback shall be measured from the area of operations to the top of the stream bank in both directions, and this is the new text is underlined here. The bank in both directions where applicable. Caswell County watershed protection regulations may require a stream buffer setback, which is more restricted than those described in the ordinance. For cases in which both ordinances apply, the most restrictive shall apply. And so again, that's just text, that's just draft text based on what the board had directed me to amend it after the last meeting. So I'm happy to take any questions about that, or if you guys want to discuss further, then now would be the time. The language sounds clear to me. Assuming this goes through, the one thing that I would like to see if we could add would be the research document that we did, or the, put together showing what other counties have as setbacks. When we send this to the commissioner, I think it would be valuable for them to have that data. Okay, so just if they want to look at this in comparison to other counties, they have something to evaluate. So that would just be a document for context. It would be a part of the ordinance. Okay. And I'll note too, so you may see further down on the agenda under new business, the amendment consistency statements, the discussion there. So, again, I don't expect any action to be taken on this today. Planning and zoning regulations on the state level require that anytime you have an amendment of this nature, that there be a consistency statement that goes along with that. That is more or less the final presentation to the commissioners. So again, we're still just in the draft stages today. If you guys have any further revisions or any comments or anything, then feel free to make those. But if you feel comfortable about what we have here, then at the next meeting, we can, I can bring forward those consistency statements for you guys to look over as well before the final product goes to the commissioners. I don't know that you have to make again, it's not really until we have a consistency statement, it wouldn't be ready to deliver to the commissioners. But I would just say if the board feels good about this today, then we can just proceed to the next meeting. Like I said, deliberating those consistency statements based on this text. And then as of right now, Mr. Oakley's comment about adding the other documents for context is the only additional item that I would bring. So if you have any further amendments, or again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain them. And if not, I guess we can possibly move on to the RV section. Ready for the next section?
So now we're going to still unfinished business B, temporary RV replacement amendment.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a very similar item. As you will recall, and I'm sure our building inspector can attest to this. There's currently a provision in the Unified Development Ordinance that allows individuals to place a temporary mobile home on their property for a period of up to 3 years while they're building their permanent residence, for example. But we have recently gotten requests for this same provision for recreational vehicles instead. And so this would just be an effort to clarify and explicitly allow that. If the board is interested, then obviously the final step is going to be the commissioners. But if the county in general were open to this regulation, then this would be the amendment to address that. So this was just a draft amendment to section 9.42 of the UDO for individual residential uses under the RV ordinance. So the new section there was 9.42.3, and it would say, quote, recreational vehicles may be used as a temporary residence for a period of no more than 3 years if used while constructing a permanent residence on the same property, or when a natural disaster or other catastrophe has rendered the primary residence uninhabitable. Residential vehicles used in either situation may not be occupied for more than 30 days past the date of the certificate of occupancy is issued for the site-built home. At that time, the RV must be disconnected from power, sewer, and water systems and either removed from the property or stored on the property in a fashion similar to other personal vehicles. And then down at the bottom too, I kind of clarified this a little bit with regards to utility requirements. So we recently got some clarification from the state that our environmental health department is requiring all RVs to be connected to a well and septic system. So that little amendment there at the end, recreational vehicles shall first obtain approval from the Castle County Environmental Health Department. Just kind of clarifies they have to get that utility hooked up.
Is that just apply to every year?
That's all RVs.
Just in terms of, you have a temporary, there's a temporary permit.
Yeah.
And then you have this 3 year.
That's correct. They would apply in both
It would
situations.
apply to both.
Yes, sir. And so the temporary, that's a good question. The temporary allowance wouldn't change. So you could still get a temporary RV permit for a period of up to 180 days. This would be different. This would be the temporary residence, which again would be the period of 3 years. So, and it's exactly the 3 year time frame is exactly the same as the allowance.
But in either case, you're saying you have to. And that, just so.
That's correct.
Now, I'm not an RV expert by any means, but let's say you go to an RV park where you're not able to connect directly to sewer and you have to go down. How does that work?
So RV parks are the one exception to that because they have specific approved dumping stations. So because they have a designated dumping station and a process in place and everything, that's taken care of. The state and then by extension, the county environmental health department look at individual RVs there. That they have to have that plumbing in order to, for sanitary purposes, basically.
What if someone had a temporary, I'm just playing devil's advocate,
Yeah.
right? What if someone had a temporary permit, but they had a septic system, they could come into the temporary basis? In other words, you have a dump station.
So if they already have a septic system on their property and they want to do a temporary RV setup,
Yeah, but it's not directly connected.
but they would have to connect into it. Per our environmental health department.
What about on residential? If it was a house and somebody was dumping in, they would hook up to the water too.
So that it was shared with the house and the,
Provided it doesn't go over the occupancy level. But
They don't absolutely ever come in and get a permit.
just ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the situation is, there's a lot of this that's gonna happen a bit. People are never gonna apply for a permit and unless someone turns them in, it's never gonna.
Sure.
Fully described, so.
that's always one thing to keep in mind is, we are a complaint driven entity for those types of violations. So if somebody comes in for the weekend or it's a very short term thing and they come and go, we never know of it. Are they technically violating the ordinance? Yes. Are they going to meet the long arm of the law? No, probably not.
Yeah, I think, I mean, with the 3-year situation, see where someone might have a short-term problem with that, because it may not even have an active septic system yet in the process of, so to get something built.
What our environmental health guys will recommend is basically to draw up the site plan for where the future house will go. And have the well and septic based on that location and then tie into the well and septic, have the RV tie into the well and septic during the temporary construction period.
Yeah.
So ideally, it's just an easy change out. The house ties into the well and septic that's already on site.
Well, what about if we have a natural disaster here, like FEMA, let's bring in campers for people sleeping? What is, how would that tie in with not having an approved campground or not having a well or septic for them to look into?
That's a really good question. So I don't know exactly how environmental health would treat that, but as you see there, part of the amendment would say at the end of that first sentence, or when a natural disaster or other catastrophe has rendered the primary residence unhappy. So that was part of my thought process in drawing this up is, a tornado comes through and just completely demolishes somebody's house, but their RV is unscathed. Should we allow them to just move into that RV since basically they've become homeless? So certainly, yeah, I mean, the board wants to take that up and move with it, and ultimately the commissioners, that language should already be there for them. But that's a good question about how environmental
Yeah,
health.
I think Pennsylvania County and Virginia, they're concerned about that now.
Yeah.
Their ordinance, no one can live on RV, any type, like I said, when FEMA trailers,
Sure.
natural disaster. Can't not gonna allow.
Right. Yes, sir.
The phrase, you got a site-built home.
Mhm.
Do you want to modify that because if somebody moves a mobile home in, that's not a site.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm certainly flexible on this language, so if there's a better term.
I don't know what the term is, but yeah,
Good thing our building inspector.
if someone says site built, in my mind, it's a house and stick built
Yeah,
right there.
that's a great point. We could certainly, I don't think using the term permanent residence would be bad. Permanent residence, because that would just capture everything. It's a great point.
I would think if a natural disaster come through and FEMA have to come in, I would think they would override the regulation of the county.
Yeah. I would think so. That's a good point, you know, and again, unfortunately, I just can't answer all the questions for environmental health. You know, they can, I believe, exercise some flexibility if somebody has self-contained.
In that situation, though, it's gonna come down to the fact that the house may be gone, but the well septic is still there. So it's just gonna be how fast we get power poles up, get people back up and running. Power company's probably gonna take some time before it's gonna get power back to the wells, and that way they can look into this stuff with their RVs, whatever else they have. For those who are gonna do it.
Yeah, but I'll be glad to run this by our environmental health guys and then maybe even see if they can come to the next meeting to clarify. Because it's a good question. You know, I look at the planning and zoning aspect of it, not necessarily the environmental health approval. But we have gotten to where we have a formula where we get the environmental health approval first, then the temporary permit, and then obviously they move on to building inspections. So they're an integral part of the process.
Yeah, like an amendment to that part about that with what Tim was talking about, maybe put in there the manufactured home.
Well, up in the beginning of this paragraph, 3 years while constructing permanent residence. So all you gotta do is take out stick built down and plot it into the bottom line. With permanent resident there,
Yeah, replace that with permanent residence. Yeah,
whether it be stick built, modular, or
exactly. Yeah. All right, so I can, so I'll do that amendment with the permanent residence and then run this by our environmental health guys as well in preparation for the August meeting. And if you guys have any other questions, you comment.
I just had one other question not related to that, but above paragraphs of 942. So just to make sure I understand that one, so if someone gets a temporary permit that's valid for 180 days, it expires after 180 days. And then you have to wait another 180 days basically before you can apply for another temporary. Is that what it was?
That used to be the way the ordinance operated before, I think maybe a couple of years ago. When the board was undertaking the 160B changes, this was something that the board looked at and changed it and made that allowance for a 180-day permit. And then theoretically, you could pull the RV off the lot, come down to our office, get a new permit, and go right back on, and your new 180 days start. In terms of some sort of enforcement mechanism to basically prevent a permanent RV placement, that's why the language is in there about if it is situated to be used as a permanent residence, then the temporary placement will be revoked and not issued again. So people come in and they'll ask, and the example I use is, you know, if you have built a deck onto the side of your RV, if you got potted plants, if the tires are flat, you know, you've got evidence that it's more than just 180 days, then that's when we can take an enforcement action. So in practicality, you got 180 days, you can theoretically come in, get a new permit, start over a new 180 days, but it should never be situated to be used as a permanent residence.
but we still have to be driven by the point, right?
Unless it's egregious. Yeah.
But now it would also have to be connected to.
Yes, it's got to be connected to the well and septic system. So.
I think that's the more restrictive part of it.
Yeah. All right. No, sir, we don't have to vote on it. So unless there's anything else from the board, again, I will change on the terminology. Take out site built home and switch in permanent residence, and then get some input from our environmental health department in the August meeting as well.
So the next item is go to new business, and we're gonna discuss A, right?
We have, yeah, I'll just touch on that again. So for both of these, I could just draft up some consistency statements. As I mentioned it earlier, general statutes require that when you amend an ordinance like this, you've got planning board review and recommendation. And then there's a consistency statement that goes along with that to to the county commissioner. So I will draft those up for you guys to review for the August meeting. If you feel good about them, we can move forward and we can make further revisions.
Okay.
All right.
And next on the agenda is new meeting location.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think over the past few months, you all have received pictures via email, and I know that we talked about this at the May meeting, but we do have a relatively large conference room now in the planning and building inspection offices that mostly goes unused. We've got a smart TV in there with camera and microphone technology. It's got its own entrance. It's got 2 bathrooms, so it basically has all the traffic. So like it does, it's just a less high demand room. One thing about this room is, you know, the homeschool folks meet in here and the arts and crafters, and there's just a lot of demand on this room. And if we can alleviate that for folks and alleviate that for the library staff, then that may be a good move to do so. So I just wanted to report to the board that the technology is ready. And if you guys wanted to make a vote today to change the meeting location of the planning board to the planning department conference room, then everything is ready to go for the August meeting. And you don't need to amend your bylaws or anything like that. As long as you vote in public session, then it should be fine to change locations.
I don't know if anybody else has had the opportunity to go down and look. I went and looked at it. I like it. Nice.
And I'll note too that at their June meeting, the Board of Adjustment voted to move into the same room as well.
Make a motion.
I make a motion, we do it for our meeting location.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Harris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Richmond. Everyone in favor? Say yeah. Everyone opposed to say nay.
Now, where are you looking at? Down-
We're in the downstairs of the. Yes, sir. We're between the sheriff's department and Parks and Rec.
Motion carries. Move back on meeting location. To what do you call it, planning?
I'd say just planning department conference room. It doesn't really have an official title. It's used by the health department upstairs and then us downstairs when we need it, but I don't know.
Jennifer, somebody upstairs keeps track of who's using it.
Yeah, I talked to Emily this morning. We've got a calendar. I got help from IT setting up the TV and camera and everything.
Let's get a fancy name for it, put a plaque up on it.
We should. The Council County Board of Health meets there as well. Tuesday evenings, first Tuesday, maybe.
Next on the agenda is Gregory Grange, Phase 3 major site plan. Everyone had a chance to look at that.
Listen, it's phase 3 is this. Is part of this phase 1 and 2, or this is all phase 3?
So phases 1 and 2 have already been approved. They were either not 7 lots or they were greater than 10 acres, so they didn't require planning. They were approved administratively. Most of them have.
That's a different location.
It's all in the same general area. I want to say that this was a relatively large, maybe a 70 or 80 acre tract of land that's been carved up. But most of, if I remember correctly, phase 2 is right on Cherry Grove Road and had road frontage. So nothing as of yet has required a private road or has risen to the category of a major subdivision. And I do have a statement prepared about this, if you'd like me to read that.
Oh, you can.
Yes, sir. So, board members, the preliminary major subdivision that you have before you contains a proposal for 8 new lots along the future private road to be named Gregory Grange Drive. All major subdivisions, which are categorized as those containing 7 or more lots, must receive approval from the planning board in accordance with UDO section 8.7. As the ordinance requires, this developer has conducted a pre-application meeting with the planning department and presented sketch plans of the preliminary plat. Subdivider has paid the necessary fees associated with review, and the surveyor has submitted the necessary number of preliminary plats for your review. And for those of you who received this via email, you will find obviously the 18 by 24 copies on your desk. The private road here has not yet been installed for this subdivision. However, such installation will need to take place, and the road will need to be inspected by planning department staff prior to final approval to ensure that it meets NCDOT subdivision road standards. A road maintenance agreement will also need to be crafted, reviewed by the subdivision administrator, which is me, and recorded at the time of the final plat. In my review capacity as subdivision administrator, I have found that all lot size, dimension, right-of-way, layout, and other subdivision requirements for all the lots have been met, and it is submitted today for your approval. As you make your determination, please note that section 8.7.4.2.3 of the UDO gives the planning board the following 3 options. Number 1, to approve the subdivision as is. Number 2, to approve the subdivision with conditions. Or number 3, to deny the subdivision. Any of these determinations must be made within 45 days of initial consideration, which is obviously today. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about this proposed subdivision.
With these subdivisions, are they already specifying what type of housing is going on there, or can it be any?
As long as the house that's built complies with width and setback and other standards, then they can build pretty much any type of house that they like.
It's a mobile home,
You could have you could have a single wide mobile home next to a 6,000 square foot mansion. Or however large mansions are.
Any other counties have any thing that puts other restrictions or controls on subdivision development?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can't think of any offhand, but just general zoning guidelines would allow you to control, square footage, setback, housing type, the installation of sidewalks, the specific location of driveways, landscaping. Other counties exercise those mechanisms quite frequently.
And then when you have a subdivision, you can, put in the bylaws, you want such and such houses here, maybe 2,000 square foot.
That's correct. Yeah,
And
you
no
can.
single wide mobile home, no double wide, stick built homes only.
That's correct. Yeah.
Bylaws.
So the developer may institute restrictive covenants on these properties. We don't have any control over that. We will have to verify, as I mentioned, we will have to verify a road maintenance agreement for all of the lots on the road. But with regards to the restrictive covenants, that's a little separate.
So this meets all the county's requirements.
At this stage, yes, sir, it does. So you've got your private road right of way width, your lot frontage, your lot width, acreage outside the setbacks. As I mentioned, they will have to go through the private road installation and inspection review process. But as of right now, for this stage in the preliminary review process, it meets all of the requirements.
Will it be paid?
It does not have to be paved, it can be gravel.
Is there a dimension for the circle in the back?
Yeah, that is, I'm trying to recall specifically what the UDO says right now. I will tell you that if you notice lots C1 and C2 are rather narrow at the cul-de-sac. So Castle County has a 50-foot wide road frontage requirement, except at the cul-de-sac where the measurement is It's written here somewhere. See, I believe it's 35 feet at the chord. Yeah, 35 feet at the chord. So the width technically, and that's something that I did have, that was unspecified in a previous draft, and I had the surveyor revise that to make sure it complied with that aspect of the ordinance.
We know how big the actual turnaround is, 93 feet,
Did you say 90?
93 feet.
That I'm not sure based on this.
Again, that's just another place, that Matthew and I have gone around about this, just so you're all aware. The fire code and our local code do not match one. I'm trying to make sure fire truck and person out there.
Well, if you look, L 64 is 50 feet. L 61 is 50 feet. That's not exactly a straight line, so it'd be at least 100 feet plus.
Yeah, but that is for the setback, not the actual gravel.
Okay.
So
No, that's gonna be, and then that dashed line is gonna be the footprint of the drive and the cul-de-sac. Where it says L 64, L 60, C2, L 62, that's gonna be your footprint of the cul-de-sac.
yeah, but the road setback's not gonna be your actual road, that's 50 feet.
No, that's the right of way line.
Yeah.
The setback is separate.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
The setbacks aren't demonstrated on the lots.
I just wasn't sure if there was a right of way versus the road.
Yeah.
At the cul-de-sac.
The building code and the fire code is different.
The fire code is different from the local code. And I'm not an expert on something this small, it's not a huge issue, but every once in a while, I get into it. For example, if you have, I think it's 30 neighborhood, doesn't matter if they're 10 acres or not, you have 2 acres. I might be shaky on that number. But things like that, just trying to get it up to date. So just trying to make sure an engine's there, fire truck. They're passing each other.
Yeah, lines C1 and C2.
Thank you. Thank you. Right.
Yeah, you'll see this table down here.
Yeah.
This is 160 of the chord length 35. And in the previous version, he wasn't far off. I think maybe he was 31 or 32 feet. So again, your options, if you choose to go down any specific path today, again, one, approve the subdivision, to approve it with conditions, or 3 to deny the subdivision. And again, the determination must be made within 45 days of additional consideration. So if for any reason you put this back up on the August meeting, then you could do that, but obviously the window would be a little narrow.
I think everything's applied,
So we're just gonna
everyone's sitting.
bring it to the next meeting, the August meeting.
If you feel that you need to, I mean, if there's any clarification that if you're uncertain about anything and you want me to get in touch with the surveyor or the developer for clarification, I'm happy to do that for August. If you feel that it's ready to approve, you can do that. If you think there's any conditions to.
They've already built several houses. Yeah.
In that area, yes, sir, they have. Yeah. That was, again, along the Gregory's Grange Phase 1 and 2 projects.
So do y'all wanna make a motion to approve it? Second.
I said,
Mr. Harris. And Steve.
no,
Steve, second, Steve. Motion made by Steve Harris. And second by Mr. Harris. Do I hear a motion, we approve it? Okay. Everybody in favor of it, say yeah.
yeah.
Anyone opposed, just say nay. All right, motion carries. Next on the agenda is plan and department updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may lean a little bit on Commissioner Yarborough on this one. All that I have. I'm more or less just going to share existing information today with you. I don't really have anything new, but I do want to share a few slides from the most recent commissioners meeting in which Zytel gave a presentation. So again, they were the recipients of this year's round of grant funding for Caswell County. And again, GREAT is an acronym for Growing Rural Economies Through Access to Technology. So what you're looking at here, let me see if I can get this out of the way. What you're looking at here over on the right-hand side, you'll see some data. 1,906 eligible address passings. A passing, I believe, is just an industry term for a home or a location that they may provide internet to. 3,812 total passings. 144 more or less miles of fiber. Total project cost $6.6 million. The state's contribution $4 million. The county contribution $250,000. Again, that's pending approval, what I recall. And then Zytel's private contribution will be in the neighborhood of about $2.5 million. So if I remember from the presentation, let's see if I can see. So you've got the map there of these are the eligible passings. And then this is what they project as total passings. This map, there it is. So you see it's a little bit more filled out and a little bit more specified with the blue dots there, including Osmond Road and Tiger Lake. And so basically, in layman's terms, from what I understand when they describe this is they get grant funding to go down County Home Road, for example, one side of County Home Road. Well, while they're providing internet to one side of County Home Road, they have the wherewithal to go ahead and provide internet to the other. So your initial 50 passings here turn into a total of 75 passings because you can grab folks on both sides of the roads. And in layman's terms, again, I think that's basically what you're looking at here. So the first map is a little bit smaller and this map is a little bit more expanded. And again, I think that's at 3,000 some recipients from what they had talked about with total passings. A couple
All
of,
of that is underground.
that's a good question. I'm not
Not
sure.
necessarily.
Not necessarily. I think like the charter, they're gonna take the path of least resistance. Go on a phone call if they can, or go underground if they have to.
Company gives them access, they'll use it.
That's right. Another thing that they talked about too, and I don't recall all the details on this again, Commissioner Yarborough, is the importance of connecting fire stations. And so they have explicitly looked at making sure that they've got high-speed access to all fire stations.
But they will, I think that we want to locate some of their equipment
Ah,
on site.
okay.
I believe is right, but they would be, if the fire department allowed that, I think they were received free internet
I see.
for however long service was available. I believe I'm correct in that.
And then the final item here, this is, we always get questions about what's it gonna cost and all that good stuff. And this is just a price breakdown for what they do, residential versus business, and a few other details out there. And this I have no idea about. I'm almost hesitant to put it up there, because these things can change. So that's all I've got on broadband, unless you guys have any questions for me.
So is that through Spectrum?
So that's Zytel.
That's site.
Yeah, Zytel is out of Virginia, but not too far away from the Mountain Lake area, I believe.
I think so.
And they lease what is known as dark fiber. So when the internet companies run a line, they've got their, their cable of fiber in the ground. They're maybe using 60-75% of that total fiber that's in there. Well, this company will lease the remaining 20-25, whatever percentage, and run internet that way. And then I think they run some of their own individual lines as well.
The county contribution, 250,000, I believe the board determined that we would not pay that until the work was complete.
Right. Any other questions on this? Got a little bit of info on cell towers. All right, so we got a previous site that's going to be coming back up on your agenda. Actually, last July, you may recall that we approved a cell tower for property between David Sarton Road and North and Highway 86 North in the Providence community. For whatever reason, that type of tower, the standalone tower that they engineered, is not going to work out. So they're going back to the drawing board with what's known as a guide tower, which has the guide wires that come down. Because this is basically defined as a substantial modification to their application, they're going to run back through the application process. So they've already sent me the vast majority of the documents. I'm waiting on a few additional documents. I thought it was going to be ready in time for this meeting. Most likely it's going to be ready in time for the August meeting. But again, it's going to be, if I recall correctly, a 300-foot guide tower right back in the same location where one was previously approved last summer. All right. Another item I wanted to share with you guys, you should have gotten in your packet, is, let's see here, the fee schedules. I just thought this was important to share. I don't have the digital copy with me. I apologize. As of July 1st, the beginning of the new fiscal year, the planning department fee schedule did change. There are greater fees now for subdivision reviews and for cell towers. Everything else has stayed the same, except for variances. We actually reduced from 150 to 100. And then for appeals, we didn't have any fee at all for appeals. So that everything we went through with watershed appeals for the last couple of years, there was no fee whatsoever attached to that process. And so now there is a fee attached to that. But like I said, by and large, the vast majority of items on the fee schedule there did not change. One thing that I think is fascinating and worthy of noting is the zoning consultation letter. So even though Castle County does not have zoning, we get calls from real estate agents or auto dealers or anybody that's gonna engage in business. Can be just as simple as a home-based business, but if a state or federal agency regulates it, they require some sort of zoning verification on the county level. And so we were providing this zoning verification and taking up a tremendous amount of time doing it, and there was no fee attached to doing that. So now, it's just, you know, as low as it goes, $25, but we do have a zoning, confirmation, process now. And that mostly is impacted by folks who are outside the county. In addition to that, the only thing I want to note is if everything goes according to plan, in addition to the cell tower, you should have 2 more major subdivisions on the August agenda. One is going to be 7 lots. And the other could be quite a bit more than 7 lots. We'll just have to see what the final draft comes through as. But that's all I've got for planning department updates. I'm happy to answer any questions.
One question for you. I think I saw on the commissioners meeting, did you take forward some discussion about billboard?
Yes, thank you for mentioning
I
that.
didn't get a chance to listen to the meeting or anything, but I was interested in how that discussion.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a tremendous amount of discussion.
Well, we instructed the manager and probably he consulted you to develop an ordinance.
Yeah.
And bring it back.
Correct. Yes, we're gonna prepare that for the August meeting for the commissioners. It'll have to go before the planning board first. And then ultimately to the commissioners for final approval, but that's something in the works. And I'm gonna meet with the county manager by the end of this week.
Okay, so you're gonna put something together.
Yeah. Gonna put something together and it'll probably get ripped to shreds. Yeah, that's part of my job, right?
I did find a
It's
few
out of my hands.
for other counties just to see
Okay.
what they had, but,
Well, one thing that I think
quite detailed.
One thing I think will be an important question to answer is how, in general, how the county feels, and really, when you boil it down, how the commissioners might feel about digital billboards. Because you think of a billboard and you think of just your regular billboard, and it says it's a community college advertisement for a month, and then it's a shoe store advertisement for a month, and it rotates. Well, digital billboards are relatively new, and obviously they can be changed day to day, and you've got light considerations, you've got nighttime, light pollution type considerations, so. I don't really have a firm opinion one way or the other, I don't get paid to have an opinion,
Yeah.
right? But that may be something that becomes a debated topic as the county considers billboards.
It is interesting. I'll just give you a funny example, right? There's a small church that in the Anderson community. And they put up this LED board. If you go down the road at night and that thing's on, I mean, it is always blinding. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, whether an ordinance is gonna, have anything to do with that, I don't know, but anyway, it has everything to do with, signs for a business, all the way to the normal roadside billboard, right? So,
Yeah, that's a good point, What was the old Supreme Court case where they said, well, I know it when I see it, right? They made a ruling on that, so they have to explicit content or whatever. It's kind of like that with billboards. You know a billboard when you see it, but then the question is, where is the cutoff between just a small sign versus a billboard? What's the dimensional requirement? So that's probably something we'll have to tackle with the draft processes.
One other thing on that would be also it's just $75 fee to get a permit for it. Billboard though requires engineering and everything else, cost of $50,000. It should be done. But currently we can set that sign for $75.
Like I said, that's all I've got for planning department. Thank you for reminding me on the billboards. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, on my resignation letter. Effective today. I'm Mike Petit, hereby resign as Vice Chairman of the Calvert County Planning Board, effective 7/25/23. Can't put in the words how much is it meant to me to sit on this board, serving the community I love. I thank you all for the opportunity, and I wish you all continued success in the years to come.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep, thank you, Mike.
Appreciate your service.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure working with you last 5
It's been
years.
years, a good 20 years.
And board members, obviously, we find ourselves in a situation here with no clear line on chair or vice chair. So one thing I will add to the agenda for August, I'm gonna have to go back and review the board's bylaws and exactly how we navigate this situation. So that'll definitely be on the agenda for August, is determining moving forward how we're gonna handle chair and vice chair for the remainder. All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Uh,
Motion made by Jason Daniels, second by Mr. Harris.
Meeting adjourned.